Class, settle down. Sit still. Be quiet. No talking. This is a talk about joy. How many of you in your educational experience had that kind of introduction to help inspire you to the joy of your learning? As she mentioned, I've spent over 4 decades designing, helping people create educational environments. More importantly than that, I've had the opportunity to go across this country, around the world, and see learning environments and the action in its place. And one of the things I was highly trained in is to be very observant. This is a talk about joy, but a lot of what I see is not joyful. The number one thing, if you survey high school students about what they think about school, is boredom. That's a shame. So I've been working on a diagram that attempts to look at all the attributes that we're trying to get into a person to make them whole, happy, joyful. So a school is about, number one, education, information, how do we learn those things? Creativity, something that's sadly lacking. How's the civic and ethics and the character of people? Do you get along with one another? We grade that in kindergarten, but not much after that. Your physical health and your emotional health. And together, note the small hand in the middle, if put in the right balance, they should be able to help create joy. But when I look at schools, and most importantly when I look at students in schools, I don't see enough joy. So the real question is, what is joy? The point of this is that there is joy in every one of us. Now, I cheated on that one. There was some tickling involved. We forced the joy out of them. But I assure you that every morning, or virtually every morning, that child wakes up happy, energetic, ready to take on life in all its forms. And he's a sponge for learning. Laughter is one of his coolest things. He just learned to stand up. By the way, he is my grandson. And his ancestral roots come from Europe, Asia, Africa, and a small island 400 miles off the coast of South America. So globalization has already happened. It's in my grandson. What kind of future does he deserve, and what are we doing about it? So the point of all this is, how do we create a world with a little bit more joy in it? So in my work, living here in Charlottesville, I think the most powerful statement ever written in English is, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all nascent beings are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, there's one word in there that's really strange, particularly at the time it was written. We're getting away from the tyranny of kings and oversight our liberty, but what is the strange word in there? And it's not the one I changed. I did that to be more inclusive in our politically correct time. It's the last one, the pursuit of happiness. Now, since then, you've already heard from Kat. We had a Constitution, a Bill of Rights, and they've protected our right to free speech, our right to assembly, even our right to bear arms. But somewhere, we lost that word, happiness. That might be the key to the future. So I've been working on this diagram, and for those of you that are not visually oriented, I'm better with pictures than words. The knowledge piece and the information piece, we've been working on that for a long time, pretty much since the history and the beginning of humankind. Knowledge has been the basis of power. If you could figure out the solar system and when the next moon would come up, when the rains might come, the seasons might change, you had tremendous power over your tribe, your group of people. You could take that knowledge and make yourself king. Over time, we've protected that knowledge from humankind because it represented power. I had knowledge. I don't want you to have that. But over time, it slowly leaks out. So we have the Catholic Church trying to prevent people from understanding this. It's against their religious beliefs of how the universe is created. But Galileo, Copernicus figure out, hold it, the earth isn't in the center, it's the sun. They didn't like that. Didn't go well for them when they had the knowledge leak out. But we've continued on this basis of trying to understand more, and it's leaked out. And now, knowledge is doubling every 13 months. There's more information in 13 months than there was before that. So, I know we have a bunch of students out there. If you're the smartest ninth grader in the history of humankind, and you start in the ninth grade, and you have great teachers, great facilities, all the technology you need, and you learn everything there is to know when you start high school, by the time you get to be a senior, you will have accomplished this. You will know 3 times less than when you started. What an accomplishment for us all. But yet, that is what the basis of school and education and the systems we have set up for our students to do, is to learn more and more knowledge. It's a fool's game. You can't do it anymore. So why do we focus so much on that when we can't do it? And we have things like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, Jeopardy, your SAT scores deciding who gets into what college. It's all based on your amount of knowledge. However, since the invention of the cell phone, any one of us can win Jeopardy if you give us about 7 seconds on a cell phone. And yet, we haven't figured out what that difference in that time means. So we need to take a slight move back into history. So we have different ages, which we label. It's a lot easier to label them after the fact, but we won't go too far back in time. Dark age is kind of depressing. Let's just start with the industrial age. Big, strong stuff. Pittsburgh, we're making more steel than anybody in the world. We're building bridges, locomotives. We're conquering the entire world. We can do anything. That worked for a while until it didn't. And then we came to the machine age. Oh boy, toasters, refrigerators, vacuum cleaners, wash machines, and that went along fine for a while. By the way, Pittsburgh stopped making steel. They didn't notice that for a while. Now we're in the information age. Most people will tell you that's where we are. We're in the knowledge-based economy. That's what we're trying to train our students for, the jobs of the 21st century. You got 21st century education going on. But what if we've already moved on? What if we haven't realized, like Pittsburgh, that steel wasn't the thing anymore? What if we were already beyond the information age? There's a lot of stuff going on that would indicate that that might be the case. You probably remember when computers tried to beat people in chess. They've beat us in poker now. Just recently, Go is a Chinese game with more complexity than chess, a whole lot more possibilities, moves, intuitions. And an artificial intelligence machine spent 3 months playing itself to learn the game and beat the best masters that have ever had every time. The best master in the world quit after 27 moves. He gave up. I can't do that anymore. So maybe we're in a different time. So the question is, what the heck does this have to do about architecture? My partners have been wondering about that for me a long time. If you read the New York Times Sunday section, you'd probably conclude nothing. But it turns out that the places that we do things in are incredibly important to us. There are a lot of quotes on it, but I like Winston Churchill's, which essentially says, we spend a few moments thinking about what kinds of things and shapes we're going to build, spaces we're going to build, and then we spend our rest of our lives being shaped by that. The happiest place in the world, it bills itself, is Disneyland, Disney World. What's the secret to that place? People love it. They go there, they spend a lot of time. Is it because it has the best roller coasters, the best food? The number one thing you do in Disney World is wait online. You eat really bad, expensive food. You're tired and exhausted at the end of the day, but people go time after time. What is the secret success of Disney World? It's the environment. They have created the image of a perfect place. There are no weeds. There are no trash. It's that simple. They have created a place that the space, the situation you're in is almost perfect. People love it. When you're feeling worn out, you go where? On vacation. You go to your happy spot. You go to the beach. Why can't we have that everywhere? And that's the power of architecture. So my specialty, as I said, has been looking at learning environments. What if we thought a little bit more deeply about the spaces and places that we're creating to educate our children? What if we were a little bit more insightful about how we did that? What if they're a little bit more respectful of the environment, of the people that are in it. So back to the diagram again. The space we're in is the number 2 factor of the memories that are created. So if I say, she mentioned 3rd grade, high school, where you are, immediately you have a picture of that. If I say Thanksgiving dinner, the first thing that comes to your mind is the places that you did that. That's what's creating your essence, your definition of yourself. But what if we were a little bit more careful about how we did that? What might that look like? This looks largely like my 4th grade classroom. Command, control, order, sit still, shut up. It's perfect if you're trying to raise the next generation of people to work in factories. But what if it looked more like this? The possibilities of what's available to students to do what they want to do, when they want to do it, learn what they want to learn, how they want to learn it. What if the students could operate that school? What if the microphone worked? So this is a net zero school, Discovery Elementary School in Arlington, Virginia. It's actually net positive. In its first year, it made all of the electricity that it needed for the year, and it's the only thing it uses electricity, so no fossil fuels, no pollution, no anything. But the students get to experiment and operate it with it. In its first year, it made enough for itself, plus 7 big houses in Northern Virginia. This year, the students are engaged in working on it to see how much more it can do. What if we really focused on creativity and we had a broad definition of it? It's not music and art. It is music and art, but it's so much more than that. And it's not music 1 period a day on a Tuesday. What if you could play your cello, your violin, whenever you wanted in the school for as long as you wanted? All of the brain science indicates we have to spend many hours at something before we master it. What if that was available to students? Instead of regulating their time, what if we allowed them to do the things they're most passionate about? What if creativity was embedded in everything they do, and it wasn't a 50-minute art period that you had to clean up, that you could work on projects that had real substance to it? What if you could do it outside whenever you wanted to? Golden thing about the outside, it does all kinds of things for our happiness and our health. What about our civics? These pieces are in bad shape right now in our ethics, how we play well with one another. Once again, space and the places we shape form those things. How can you have places for people to interact in the moment when they're working, doing what they're going about, and make it places that are fun to be? This is a picture of a stormwater detention pond. Every one of those rings is a 25, 50, 100-year flood. But it's a place that children can interact with each other. What if there are little places in the school that people can get together? A widened windowsill, just a little place for us girls to sit and chat about what we're doing. What if we did it as we got a little bit older? We had pleasant places to talk. They changed the environment. Why don't we have places where we can get together and interact about all the difficult issues that are available anytime, anywhere in the places that we're raising our children? What about our physical health? They should be active all the time. If you watch an NFL game, it's not about whether they're kneeling or not. They'll advertise that every child should get 50 minutes of exercise a day. They should get more than that. They actually should get exercise every 50 minutes. As you sit here in this audience for 50 minutes, your brain is slowly turning itself off. We have to do a lot of things to try and get you energized so you don't do that. But if children just go up 2 flights of stairs between classes, their brains are rejuvenated. Food. This is criminal how we feed children in school. The only way we feed children in schools like that are the military, prisons, children, and animals we're getting ready to slaughter. Why don't we make food, the fundamental human activity of learning and sharing the food, a happy occasion where the students are involved? They learn about their food and what goes into it. Playing outside is a very simple thing to do, yet it's recess, it's a privilege in school, and playing in nature, it turns out to be critical. So how do you transition from your physical health to your mental health? You have a picture of Einstein in his bathing suit. So certainly he was smart, a lot of intelligence, a lot of creativity, good civic quality, maybe not so much on the physical health, but emotionally, he understood the importance of those things. And how do we do that in schools? We have places of joy. This is a slide to get from the second floor to the first floor. And the principal loves this question: when do the kids get to do that? She answers it: whenever they want to. Having places in schools where you can sit and be calm. Not all of us are extroverts or introverts. How do you have time for reflection? Learning requires a downtime to process things in between lessons. We don't do that very well. We're scheduling our children one activity after another. So, thought about this. This is expensive. How are we going to change all these things? How are we going to have that for everybody when we have all this infrastructure? What does a perfect learning environment look like? We couldn't possibly afford that. They're learning, they're creative, they're getting along real well with each other. It's this physical exercise, and they are happy. So, I mentioned this is a talk about joy. Let's talk about ages. Information is doubling every 13 months. What's next? One of the beauties about being an architect is you start with a blank sheet of paper. That's the business I'm in, is figuring out all the possibilities there. The only thing preventing us from all the possibilities is what we can think of, what we can conceive. So since the history of mankind, we have more and more knowledge. We've pretty much got that. What does this point in time allow us to do? Maybe, just maybe, it allows us to pick what the next age is. So instead of worrying about how fast the amount of information is doubling, what if we were concerned about how fast the amount of joy in the world was doubling? What if we had the power to decide what the next age could be? I think it should be the age of joy. Thank you.